The reality of man is his thought, not his material body. The thought force and the animal force are partners. Although man is part of the animal creation, he possesses a power of thought superior to all other created beings. Abdu'l-Baha. The important factor in human improvement is the mind. In the world of the mind, there must needs be development and improvement. There must be reformation in the kingdom of the human spirit. Otherwise, no result will be obtained from the betterment of the mere physical structure. Abdu'l-Baha.
So today we're really happy to have Miss Faith Holmes, and she'll be talking about the healing power and danger of our thoughts. Faith has a passion for transformational change management, entrepreneurship, and helping to create oneness in the world. Her life's purpose is to help individuals, nonprofits, communities, and corporations elevate the human experience and become the greatest version of themselves. She believes diversity should be our greatest strength, not a weakness, and has dedicated her life to elevating unity and diversity. She's experienced firsthand the transformational influence of Neuro Change Solutions and now accompanies others to a transformational workshop called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. Her purpose is to elevate the human experience, to create oneness in the world, to shine light in the world and help teachers, students, businesses, and organizations know that they can change their reality and create the life they want to live instead of settling for the life they have. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ms. Holmes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in this conversation this morning. I'm super excited to share with you some of the things that I've learned, not only through the Baha'i faith, but also through a scientific lens. And science is ever evolving. One of the principles of the Baha'i faith is the absolute oneness and unity of science and religion. So the Baha'i faith was founded in the mid-1800s, and Baha'u'llah, who is the prophet of the Baha'i faith, came to unite the world. He taught about three onenesses: the oneness of God, the oneness of religion, and the oneness of mankind. And Baha'is all over the world are striving to be of service to humanity, to help bring about a world where there is equality, where there is oneness, and where we can thrive as human beings and individuals. So this conversation, I want to thank Baha'i Modern Perspectives for providing this incredible service for all of these years. I've enjoyed so many of the conversations and I've learned so much about so many different topics that you all engage in on a weekly basis here on this channel. So thank you so much for providing this service. It's really beautiful. There's a quote from Abdu'l-Baha that talks about how if you're feeling down and you're looking to uplift yourself, go and be of service to others. And I have found that to be so true in my life that that is truly the key. So without further ado, I'm going to get into our PowerPoint presentation this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are calling in from or zooming in from. So I have been super excited over the past number of years to look at how our thoughts create our reality. And I want to thank you for the intro of the music and the quotes. It set up the perfect foundation for what we're going to talk about today. I also want to thank you for sharing a little bit of my bio. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Faith Holmes. And at the moment, I'm in Pine Ridge, South Dakota on the Oglala Lakota Sioux Reservation. My mother has lived here for the past 34 years, and I'm very honored to be of service to this community, not only through Ocheti Wakan, which is a nonprofit organization that works to help preserve the Lakota culture and language and the healing of its peoples, and also through Neuro Change Solutions, through NCS work. I am really honored to be able to bring the power of our thoughts and minds into this community through a workshop that I teach called Change Your Mind, Create New Results. It's a 12 to 15-hour workshop that really helps people understand the thinking, feeling loop and how to create transformational change from the inside out. I believe this is the third presentation I've given for Baha'i Modern Perspectives, and the previous two will kind of give you my story of how I got here. And because I want to take a deeper dive this morning into some of the scientific research and how the Baha'i writings align to that scientific research, I'd encourage you, if you're interested to know how I got here, to go back and watch both of those videos. I believe they will provide links in the description once this video goes live, but otherwise you can go to Baha'i Modern Perspectives and search it out. So I'm here today to really take a deep dive into the healing power and danger of our thoughts. In every given moment, we can choose to focus on healing, or we can focus on that which does not help serve us. I'm just going to give you a quick overview here. We can see here that what we're going to cover today is the power of our thoughts, the danger and the healing. We're going to talk about what is frequency, the healing power of music, modalities of healing, the power of the heart, and finally, the soul. Science today is proving that we as human beings think 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. So if we really truly want to create systemic change in our lives, we have to start thinking about what we've been thinking about and start to learn how to change some of that thought process. We opened with this quote, "The reality of man is his thought, not his material body. The thought force and the animal force are partners. Although man is part of the animal creation, he possesses a power of thought superior to all other created beings." So when we take a look at this faculty of thought and how we create our reality based on what we think about, we have to be super careful about how we move through the world and what we're thinking about all the time. Did you know, this is information and scientific research that comes out of HeartMath. If you're not familiar with HeartMath, I highly recommend you check them out and do some deep research, because so much of what they're proving is so much a part of what we believe as Baha'is and what Baha'u'llah wrote about over 160 years ago. Negative emotions can create nervous system chaos, but positive emotions can also do the opposite. Positive emotions can increase the brain's ability to make good decisions. Have you ever noticed in your own personal life that when you're in a funky mood or when you're not doing so well in life, that you're not making the best decisions for yourself? This brain science is super important to understand, because when we have these positive emotions, it does increase our ability to make good decisions. You can also boost your immune system by focusing on positive emotions. This is not pseudoscience. This is not something that is maybe a possibility. It is actual fact. It is being proven over and over and over again through scientific research right now. Positive emotions create psychological benefits in your body. In fetal development, the heart forms and starts beating before the brain begins to develop. Just by a show of hands, how many people here believe, and maybe you can go ahead and put a little like thumbs up in the comment section, but how many people believe that your brain is more powerful than your heart, or that your brain leads more of your life than your heart does? Okay, I see a couple of hands go up, and I've seen a few maybe not. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to dive into is just that question, to research a little more that question. The human heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body. So what science is finding is that you can measure the feelings of the heart that reaches out 3 meters. Whereas the energy that emanates from the brain is only 1 inch. It's pretty incredible to see. And how is it that we create heart and brain coherence? So here is something that comes from the Heart Math Institute, and they are looking at heart rate variability. And you can see the dysregulation of the heart here when someone is in frustration. However, when this person shifts to appreciation, look at how even and beautiful those heart waves are. So in every given moment, we react to things, and it's fine to react, but how long are you going to stay in that place? And the incredible thing, as Abdu'l-Baha said, the power of thought, we in an instant can choose to shut off frustration, shift into heart-focused breathing, and go into appreciation or gratitude or love, or we could just call up the thought, the feelings of someone that we love, and we can turn that into appreciation. I want to share a short video with you about how the heart-brain coherence works. And the person who is speaking here is Dr. Joe Dispenza. This is actually the person that I work with who created Neuro Change Solutions. And what we do is we work to change individuals and organizations from the inside out. There's a beautiful quote that I highlighted the last conversation that I gave that was, it's a quote from Baha'u'llah that says, build for yourself such houses that the rains and floods can never destroy, which will protect you from the changes and chances of this world. And as I mentioned there, I've read this quote many times throughout my life. And it wasn't until I found this work that I found the roadmap of how to get there. So here's a little bit of information about heart-brain coherence.
When a person is living in stress and they're out of balance, their heart is always racing a little bit. And over time, people begin to condition their heart to race like that all the time. And if you keep creating that kind of incoherence in the heart, where it's no longer beating in a rhythmic fashion, the disintegration of the interference of those individual frequencies diminishes energy in the heart. And now we stop trusting ourselves. We stop trusting in our future. And the heart is the creative center. The heart represents the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites. This is where our divinity begins. If you can teach a person how to open their focus and begin to become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time, and begin to open up into that blackness, that quantum field where there's nothing physical, and out of all the things they can put their attention on, instead of putting it on their cell phone or their Facebook or their coworkers or their boss or their ex or the problems in their lives, they're taking all of their attention and placing it on their heart. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And in a sense, you are putting attention in giving your heart life, the very life force it needs to begin to bloom like a flower. So as you rest your attention in your heart and you're able to keep your attention there, The next step is to slow your breathing down, and you breathe in and out of your heart. And what you're doing is you're working with your body so that it feels safe enough to relax into the present moment and switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. And of course, if a person is aroused constantly, it's going to take some practice to begin to do this. And as you begin to breathe in and out of your heart, slower and deeper and more relaxed, as your breathing slows down, your brainwaves slow down, and now the person now is starting to slip right into the autonomic nervous system and into the operating system. Now, let's trade the emotions of guilt, of shame, of unworthiness, of pain, of suffering, of anger, of fear, of hostility, of judgment, of envy, for heart-centered, elevated emotion. And as you breathe, give yourself permission to begin to feel gratitude, appreciation, begin to feel thankfulness, a love for life, a joy for existence, but doing that independent of any condition in your external environment. In other words, so many people are conditioned into believing they need a reason for gratitude. They need a reason for joy. They need a reason to feel love. They need something outside of them to create that emotion inside of them. And here we're doing the exact opposite. We're beginning to open our hearts and begin to put energy in there. And as we begin to breathe and feel these elevated emotions, all of a sudden the heart starts to become more coherent. And like dropping pebble in very still water, pebble after pebble after pebble in a very rhythmic fashion, all of a sudden, the heart begins to produce an ambient magnetic field that can be up to 3 meters wide. And now, like beating a great drum, frequency that's being created from the heart, that frequency can carry information. And now the person, once energy moves into their heart, they're in the perfect state to create in. In other words, once this creative center opens up, and once it begins to become more coherent, not only are you producing that magnetic field that's beginning to spread out from your body, you're becoming more energy and less matter, more wave and less particle. You'll begin to feel like you're connected to something greater. And when your heart is open, you're no longer experiencing lack, polarity, separation, or duality. You feel connected. Your body begins to believe when you train your heart that your future is actually happening in the present moment because you're experiencing the emotion of your future before it happens.
So I think it's incredible because Baha'u'llah focuses a lot on the heart. And
when a person...
So here, also from the Heart Math Institute, the magnetic field produced by the heart is more than 100 times greater in strength than the field generated by the brain and can be detected up to 3 feet away from the body. The heart's magnetic field is the strongest rhythmic field produced by the human body. It envelops every cell of the body and extends out in all directions into the environment around us. In fact, the heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive magnetometers. Now, Baha'u'llah talks a lot about the heart. He says, "O son of being, thy heart is my home. Sanctify it for my descent." As I mentioned in the beginning, I think it's incredible the way that science is now confirming what Baha'u'llah wrote over 160 years ago. He then, in another hidden word, goes on to say, or in a different hidden word, I should say, "O son of dust, all that is in heaven and on earth, I have ordained for thee, except the human heart, which I have made the habitation of my beauty and glory." In that hidden word, he goes on to say, "Yet thou didst give my home and dwelling to another than me. And when the manifestation of his holiness sought his own abode, a stranger found he there. and homeless hastened unto the sanctuary of the beloved. Notwithstanding, I have concealed thy secret and desire not thy shame. Can you imagine if you came home and found someone else in your stead, and how we talk badly about them and all of these things? Isn't it beautiful that Baha'u'llah says, all that is in heaven and earth I have ordained for thee except the human heart, which I have made the habitation of my beauty and glory. And even if you give it away, I'm going to conceal that secret. There's another beautiful quote that I came upon in researching all of this. I ask God that he may open the gate of the knowledge of this station to thine heart, so that thou mayest apprehend whatever is necessary and proper, garner spiritual bounties from the heaven of the All-Merciful, obtain the effulgences of knowledge from the Sun of Reality, and become a manifestation of inspiration from the unseen and a source of glad tidings from the All-Merciful. Abdu'l-Baha goes on to say, there are certain pillars which have been established as the unshakable supports of the faith of God. The mightiest of these is learning and the use of the mind, the expansion of consciousness and insight into the realities of the universe and the hidden mysteries of Almighty God. It's really exciting to me to see the way that humanity's consciousness is rising because of what we're learning and the power of the mind. And what we are learning every day about the universe expanding and accelerating. We as human beings, even though we've lived for so long, as far as scientific studies and research is concerned, we are really at the infancy, because every day new awarenesses and learnings are coming to light that have us understand and learn that we really didn't know what we were talking about before. And one of the interesting things that comes along in this work is that if we really think about who we are, and we think about how we're created, right? Science tells us that we're created of atoms. We're made up of atoms. And an atom is 99.99999% energy and only 0.00001 matter. So if you've ever walked into a room and someone has been having a really bad day and you were feeling pretty good, have you noticed that it brings your energy down? Or vice versa? Have you ever been struggling in your own day and you've walked into a room where someone is really up and joyful and excited about life and it brings you up a little bit? This is part of what we're talking about human consciousness and how energy impacts everything around us. Albert Einstein said, everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want to live. That's not what he said. He said, match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be in no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So, have you ever heard stories about Abdu'l-Baha and even Baha'u'llah? If you think about the Rizwan Garden, for those of you who may not know much history about Baha'u'llah, there is a beautiful when Baha'u'llah declared his mission, there was a beautiful tent set up and there was a mound of roses. And I took a class a few years ago on somatic archaeology with Dr. Ruby Gibson about healing historical trauma. And one of the things that we looked at was essential oils. And it was very interesting to me how rose is the highest frequency essential oil that exists. And it's more than double what the one closest to it is. Rose oil is actually 320 megahertz frequency. And I thought, wow, Abdu'l-Baha and Baha'u'llah would actually stand at the door and give rose water to the people who were entering. Can you imagine that they were actually changing the frequency of the people who were entering? So I want to share a little bit more about frequency with you all and how it works. It has to do with energy and vibration. And this video here will show you, it's a speaker that is hooked up to a vibration. And what you see on its surface is salt. And the higher you raise the frequency, the more beautiful and complex the patterns are. So let's take a look at this. I might skip ahead a little bit just for the essence of time. So when we match the frequency of that which we are looking for, we spiral up. So in this emotional guidance scale, you'll see two things, right? Over on the right-hand side, the map of consciousness levels. If you look down at the bottom, you see that shame is only 20 megahertz, whereas courage is 200, or love is 500. Joy is 540, and enlightenment goes as much as 1,000. So if we want to create energy that is renewing, we have to spiral up. Whereas if we focus on our pride, anger, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, and shame, it depletes us of our vital life force. In this emotional guidance scale over on the left, you see joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, and appreciation is at the very top. And interestingly, at the bottom of the downward spiral, you see fear, grief, depression, powerlessness, and victimization or victimhood, right? And it's very interesting because Baha'u'llah also addresses that when he talks about the fact that love cannot dwell in a heart possessed by fear. So I want to share with you a little information from Bruce Lipton, who's another scientist that I have been excited to discover.
My name is Bruce Lipton. I started out as a young child with a Russian Jewish father in the United States in the McCarthy period. When I grew up in that McCarthy period, no matter how much they were against Russians and Jews, Albert Einstein was a hero of the world. And he was a Jew, and so Albert Einstein was my hero. That led me into science. I ended up teaching in a medical school, and I was teaching the conventional science of genes control your life. And this is an experiment that I did that changed my whole life. I have 50,000 genetically identical cells in a petri dish. All the cells came from the same parent. I split the cells into 3 different petri dishes. I changed the environment in each of the dishes. In environment A, the cells form muscle. In environment B, the cells form bone. In environment C, the cells form fat cells. Now you're left with a question. What controls the fate of the cells? And the answer is not the genes, they were all exactly the same. The only thing that was different was the environment. But at this time, which is back in the early 70s, all the scientific world was so wrapped up in genes that when I tried to show my experiments, my colleagues looked at it and said, no, that's, there's just an artifact, it's not real. I left the system. I knew I was teaching the wrong information, that genes do not control things. There's a scientific study by a man called Cleve Baxter. He took cells from a human, put them in a petri dish, and moved them 40 miles away.
They began to show powerful images to the person that had donated the cells. Graphic images of war, destruction, comedy, humor, sexual images, anything to elicit a genuine emotional response. The instant that the person had the emotion, his cells acted as if they were still in his body having the same emotion.
The cells 40 miles away show the electrical activity of that response. What's the point? If this person's cells are connected to this person, but they're 40 miles away.
How did the information reach, or did it? And the answer is, it didn't have to travel. The field is holographic. And what that means is what happens in one part of the field influences other parts of the field in the same instant. And this is deeply, deeply profound.
Our thoughts are not contained in our head. Our thoughts are broadcast to the field. If I put wires on your head, that's called EEG, electroencephalograph, I can read your brain. But there's a new technology called magnetoencephalograph. The probe doesn't touch the head. The probe is out here. I'm reading your brain activity from out here. Point? Your brain activity is being broadcast.
What is a thought? Thought is a frequency. A thought emits a vibration.
From the most primitive organism all the way up to humans, all of us communicate by vibration. How does an amoeba know to go to the right place and not go to the wrong place? Vibes.
For every light frequency, there's a corresponding sound frequency. For every sound frequency, there's a corresponding light frequency.
Every atom has its own vibrational frequency.
We have field of vibration. We have also photons. It is light. Thought is a particle of light. We can measure it.
There was an experiment conducted by a physicist named Bell. You have a photon that splits to 2, and they're so far apart that a signal cannot go from one to the other without going faster than light. So the question was, if they could communicate instantly, that would mean that communication faster than the speed of light is possible if there is entanglement of the waveform. And when the experiment was done, what they discovered very interestingly was that the particles can communicate faster than light. Much as photons communicating, you can view consciousness as also having wave characteristics, which means in consciousness, we can communicate and perceive anywhere throughout the entire universe.
So if thought can be measured as a wave function, as a particle of light, what does light travel? 7 times around the planet in 1 second. So can a thought travel like that?
So our thoughts are so powerful, just as Abdu'l-Baha talked about, right? Then I wanted to also address how music impacts us, because there's a lot of scientific research coming out about that as well. And Baha'u'llah said, "We verily have made music as a ladder for your souls, a means whereby they may be lifted up unto the realms on high." Musical melodies are therefore those peculiar effects produced by or from vibration. So here we go back again and we look at frequency and vibration. However, they have the keenest effect upon the spirit. In sooth, although music is a material affair, yet its tremendous effect is spiritual, and its greatest attachment is to the realm of the spirit. If you have a great desire and wish to attain your end, try to do so on a large audience after a great solo has been rendered. But it must be on an audience on which music is effective. For there are some people who are like stones, and music cannot affect stones. I'm not sure if that's true. I mean, I'm sure it is because Abdu'l-Baha said it, but I think even our stones are alive. So it's interesting to take a look at that. Pythagoras was a Greek philosopher, and Pythagoras is credited with being the father of music. He is also created as being the father of geometry. So it's very interesting because everything in the universe can be explained through math, right? And frequency and geometric shapes. And the higher the frequency goes, the more order there is. He's also the father of mathematics. He discovered the musical intervals and taught that you could heal using sound and harmonic frequencies. He was the first person to describe music as medicine. So this is a very interesting clip that I want to share with you about musical tones healing the blood.
And I'm an acoustic physics researcher. Pythagoras said that music could be used in place of medicine. It got my attention, and I thought there must be some experiments that could be conducted where we can carefully measure the response of music to some sort of healing situation. The first experiment that I conceived of was using blood. You take a vial of blood and you place it into an incubator with a small loudspeaker in the incubator that's feeding music to that blood. At the same time that that's happening, we have another vial of the same blood. We have a Faraday cage, which is electromagnetically screened, but it's also a very, very quiet environment. So that blood is not receiving any music, it's just receiving quiet. We go through a protocol that first dilutes the blood by a certain ratio with a buffer solution, and then we extract a small amount of that mixed blood. When we put that blood into the cell counter, it will tell us how many cells are actually live and what the term is viable. The cells in the Faraday cage have not fared very well at all. Mostly dead.
But if the cells are dead, that means that the cells from the tube that got exposed to my voice, they'll be dead too. I mean, it's the same blood.
I think we should probably repeat that, though, and see if we get the same result. Let's try counting the cells. Still the same with that sample. I hope you can see this. Dilute the sample. More cells alive than the cell counter can count. That's a huge difference between the music and the quiet.
Is that true?
Well, look.
But this is amazing.
So I think we should repeat and see if we get the same result. Above the range that it can count, cells that are transiting towards being dead have been actually re-enlivened to the extent that so many of them are now alive. It's really wonderful. An amazing result. Absolutely amazing. When we have a heartbeat, it creates a pressure wave, and that allows the hemoglobin molecules take in some oxygen from the blood. The low frequencies from Anders' voice are creating the similar sort of pressure waves that allows the blood to uptake the oxygen.
The scientific studies that we're coming upon are really incredible when it comes to how science is proving what the Baha'i writings have said for so long. And when we talk about joy, or we talk about uplifting, Abdu'l-Baha says that joy gives us wings. In times of joy, our strength is more vital, our intellect keener, and our understanding less clouded. We seem better able to cope with the world and to find our sphere of usefulness. But when sadness visits us, we become weak. Our strength leaves us. Our comprehension is dim, and our intelligence failed. The actualities of life seem to elude our grasp. The eyes of our spirit fail to discover the sacred mysteries, and we become even as dead beings. So when we think about those 60 to 70,000 thoughts that we have every single day, where do we put our energy and attention? Abdu'l-Baha goes on to say in another passage, joy is the best cure for your illnesses. Joy is better than 100,000 medicines for a sick person. If there is a sick person and one wishes to cure him, let one cause joy and happiness in his heart. Before I started embarking on this deep dive in the scientific realm about the power of our thoughts, I found these quotes to be uplifting, inspiring, but I did not believe them to be prescriptive. I now know through these scientific experiments that I'm sharing with you that Abdu'l-Baha was actually being prescriptive. I have one last short video to share with you about blood that is exposed to love and blood that is exposed to fear.
people say, okay, Bruce, you're studying cells in a plastic petri dish. What does that have to do with me? It doesn't make a difference to the cell if it's in a plastic dish or a skin dish. It still responds to environmental signals. So the environment is controlling the cells. But between the environment and the cells is the mind, and that does interpretation. If you open your eyes and see someone you love, your mind interprets love, and you release beautiful chemicals. Dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin for bonding. If I take the chemicals from brain that perceives love and put them into a plastic petri dish, the cells grow beautifully. If I take the chemicals from a brain that perceives fear, the cells stop growing and they start dying. So you're the one whose thoughts change the chemistry, and the chemistry controls the genetics. So all of a sudden, you're not a victim of your genes, you're the master of your genes.
Here we go. Love is a light that never dwelleth in a heart possessed by fear. And with thy love in my heart, all the world's afflictions can in no wise alarm me. So in every given moment, friends, we have to be very mindful about what it is that we are thinking about and realize that we have the power of thought, the power of choice to make a different decision. I'll close on this quote. Know verily that the soul is a sign of God, a heavenly gem whose reality the most learned of men have failed to grasp, and whose mystery no mind, however acute, can ever hope to unravel. It is the first among all created things to declare the excellence of its creator, the first to recognize his glory, to cleave to his truth, and to bow down in adoration before him. If it be faithful to God, it will reflect his light and will eventually return unto him. If it fail, however, in its allegiance to its creator, it will become a victim to self and passion and will, in the end, sink in their depths. Let's find every tool and every means in front of us to help make sure that we focus on the positive things of life and that we turn our energy and attention and frequency and vibration to that which is uplifting and life-giving and sustaining instead of that which breaks us down. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I'd be happy to answer any questions or if there are any comments that anyone would like to share.
Thank you so much. So if people have questions, you can put it in the chat. The first one is, isn't the magnetic field produced by the heart just a physical phenomena unrelated to one's spiritual state? If I meditate, my heart rate does drop, and I imagine this will affect the heart's magnetic field. But then again, there are people who can fool lie detectors by dropping their heart rate as well. So it seems that the same magnetic field would be produced whether I'm meditating on God or whether a person is trying to engage in deception by lowering his heart rate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know that I'm able to answer this question with fidelity, but reading the Baha'i writings and understanding the difference between love and fear, I don't think that you could manipulate that. I think science is catching up to it, but from my perspective and the deep dive that I've done in this work is I think that oneness that is a creator of us all is not able to be manipulated. But like I said, I'm not a scientist, so.
The next question is, what is expanding consciousness?
So when Abdu'l-Baha talked about expanse in consciousness, I think if we think about even the last 10 years or 20 years. Like if we think about Dr. Emoto's work with ice crystals, if we look at those scientific studies from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, there was a lot of people out there saying, no, that can't be real, that can't be true. But yet every scientific study since then has continued to confirm that reality. So that to me is an expansing consciousness, that we are raising our frequency, we are raising our vibration, we are raising in our understanding of what is possible. For that video that I showed about the blood being exposed to music and those tones, those frequencies, like the fact that the blood that was just sitting in a petri dish somewhere else, without any kind of sound or anything, most of those cells were dying, but yet the others were healing. When I think about the fact that we as Baha'is are asked to say 95 times Allahu Akbar 95 times a day, think about how that is impacting our blood, right? I mean, we have the scientific evidence that shows how powerful that is. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are naysayers and who are trying to say that this is pseudoscience or this isn't real. But in this expansing consciousness, we keep upping the ante. And I don't think that, like, if we really truly believe that Baha'u'llah is the manifestation of God for today, don't we believe that what he's saying is true? When he says that joy is a better cure for your illnesses, it's better than 100,000 medicines, and now science is backing it up, that's a huge expanse in consciousness, I believe.
The next question is, how do we intentionally generate certain emotions in us without external reasons for them?
Ooh, this is my favorite. So, some of you may be familiar with Shoghi Effendi's 5 steps of prayer. In the 5th step, he says, act as though it has already been achieved. And when I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, he was sharing a formula where he said, if you want to create something in your life, you can take a piece of paper out, and over on the left-hand side, write down 5 or 6, 7 qualities about what that thing will look like. And then over on the right-hand side of the paper, write down how you will feel once these things have taken place. You go into heart-focused breathing, you go into meditation, and you start bringing up the emotions and feelings of how you will feel when that has come into your life. So when we do that heart-focused breathing and we focus our energy and attention there, we can bring up those feelings and emotions. And it was the first time I understood how Abdu'l-Baha said, act as though, I'm not Abdu'l-Baha, sorry, how Shoghi Effendi said, act as though it has already been achieved. Because we can do that just by thought alone. There's a bunch of scientific research out there about the difference between mental rehearsal and actual practice. And Harvard did a study many years ago about piano players, and they took 3 groups of people. One group of people was the control group. Another group of people was taught one-handed scales, and they practiced for 2 hours a day for 5 days. And every day there was a functional brain scan that was taken on all 3 groups. And then this 3rd group was a mental rehearsal group. This group of people learned how to do the one-handed scales, never sat down at a piano or a keyboard, and only mentally rehearsed in their minds playing those scales. And the functional brain scans that were taken between all 3 groups, the group that was the control group, their brain scans barely changed at all. But the group that practiced physically and the group that mentally rehearsed had growth in the same regions of the brain, almost exactly the same size. So what we mentally rehearse, our body does not know the difference between actually experiencing an event and just thinking about it by thought alone. to the body, it's the same, which is one of the reasons why we have to be so careful about what we think about. This is part of what I teach in the workshop that I do called Change Your Mind, Create New Results.
Thank you. The next question is, does the music style matter and to what extent?
So it does. Abdul Baha says it does in a very, and Baha'u'llah actually, like it, there are writings that say, don't let it be a plaything. So I'm not an expert in that, but the only thing that I do know is that frequency, hertz, vibration is important, but I don't know how that works. I know that Dr. Emoto's work, if you want to research a little further on that, like heavy metal music never created beautiful ice crystals. Classical music created very beautiful ice crystals. So, and I'm sure there's everything in between. So I apologize if there's anyone on this call who really loves heavy metal music, but what they showed is it's a very low vibration. It's a very low frequency.
Is the clip you showed from the movie The One Field?
It is. Yeah, if anybody is interested, it's almost a 2-hour film. A number of the clips that I showed today, not all of them, but a number of the clips that I showed today are from a movie called The Field.
Is there a possibility that humanity will do away with chemically made medicine and adopt to learning how the elements in the body system play in this part?
I mean, I think that we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's my own personal belief. I believe that's substantiated in the Baha'i writings, where Abdul Baha says that in the future we will heal through foods. I am a part of a community through people who really take a deep dive in Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, who are healing themselves through changing the way they think, changing the way they act, and changing the way they feel. There are people who are healing themselves of MS, of vision loss, hearing, stage 4 cancer. And I'm not talking about just like a few handful of individuals. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonials, if not in the thousands, where people, that thinking, feeling loop, again, Abdul Baha said, joy is a better cure for your illnesses than 100,000 medicines. So here we are in a grouping of people who come together for 7 days to learn new key pieces of information and meditate together, and learning to think, to change that thinking, feeling loop. Very significant healings are taking place, and it's very much in alignment with what the Baha'i writings say. So I wouldn't throw out conventional medicine completely, because I do think that there is a place for that, but I don't think it's the only place. And I think we've been I think we've been manipulated to believe it's the only way that we can receive healing. And we know through the Baha'i writings that there are other ways to heal, and scientific research today is also showing that there are many other ways to heal.
Can you describe further Joe Dispenza's method of putting the description of the future you want on one side and how to generate the emotion associated with that vision you wish for the future?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So this comes from something called The Formula. It's written about in detail in a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza when I was in my darkest night of the soul. And I read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. So if you really want to do a very deep dive, you can go there. But just for our purposes here, if you were to take out a piece of paper and you were to look at it, and you were to look at the left side of the piece of paper, what are 5 or 6 things, like if you wanted to manifest health in your life, let's just say, for example. So what would being in great health look like for you? So you might have great vitality. You might wake up renewed and refreshed and joyful every day. You might be free of pain. You might feel energy throughout every system in your body. So you want to come up with like 5 or 6 or 7 things, 4 to 7 things that really shows like what being in good health looks like for you. Okay, is that a good example for everybody? And then over on the right-hand side, how are you emotionally going to feel when all of these things are there? So you're going to write down, you might be exhilarated. You might feel worthy. You might be joyful, excited. You might feel confirmed. And then what you do is you close your mind, you close your eyes. You might want to put on some beautiful music in the background that's uplifting to you, because we know the healing ways of frequency there. And you want to do some heart-focused breathing. And you want to feel all of those emotions that you wrote down on the right-hand side. And don't get up from your meditation until you can go throughout the rest of your day in that elevated state. And when you do that, then you are able to become a magnet, which is exactly what what Shoghi Effendi says. You yourself send that energy out into the field, and we attract, Shoghi Effendi says, we attract that to us. So I hope that helps. But if you want to go deeper, I recommend reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
What outcomes and effects do self-interested and individually focused motivations and thoughts have compared to community-focused thoughts and motives? And what can we do to obtain optimal results?
Ooh. I think that we are a community and we are individuals. So I think it's both. I think the whole is only as healthy as its parts. So I think the healthier we are as individuals, I gave the example of being in good health. I think the more I focus on that for myself, the better my community is, and the more I can help my community. So I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. And I think that most people, when they receive the healing or they receive the benefits of that self-improvement and health, the first thing they want to do is give. The first thing they want to do is be of service. There's a beautiful quote from Abdu'l-Baha that talks about, and I'm sorry, I don't have it memorized, but there's a beautiful quote from Abdu'l-Baha that says that if you're feeling sad or depressed and you can't find a way out of that, go and be of service to others. And I've done that in my life. And by doing that, I've realized that it's an absolutely true statement. Like if I'm feeling down, if I'm self-involved, that last quote that I shared, right? It talked about being focused on self. Whereas when you're being of service to humanity or to another individual, it tends to uplift us in beautiful ways. I see I want to say hi to Watheria, and I see something in the chat from her that says it seems that that each of us must discover the keys and learn how to transform fear into love and depression into joy. That's absolutely what our Baha'i writings say, and it's absolutely what the scientific research is proving. And so how do we do that? How do we, when we're depressed, we go out and maybe be of service to others? That might be a way to find joy. But when we go into fear, remember that Baha'u'llah says love cannot dwell in a heart possessed by fear. So how do we turn off that fear and go into love? And in every given moment, we are given the choice on what we're going to focus on. So we can focus on everything that's falling apart in our lives, or we can turn our attention and focus into the things that are building up ourselves, and we have to protect ourselves. I've been someone who some of you might not agree with this, but it's what works for me. I don't watch the news. I don't know what's going on in the world, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I know a little bit, but it depletes me of my energy, and I get caught up in something that I can't control. Whereas if I take the time to focus on my health and healing and the health and healing of my community, I can be of great service. And I'm really, really fortunate to be able to take this workshop, the Change Your Mind, Create New Results workshop, into the jail here in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and to see the transforming effect that it's having, to see people waking up to, oh, I've lived under oppression all my life, a cloud of negativity. And what I'm learning now is that I can take that and turn it around and change the way I think is super exciting. So all of us have the ability to do that. I also wanted to just say hello to my Baha'i brother from Norway who's going to the retreat in December. It's Dr. Joe's first 10-day retreat. I was hoping to be there, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But congratulations. I can't wait to, please be in touch with me. I would love to hear how your time is.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, looks like that's it. Thank you so much for this really amazing talk. So much for us to listen to. And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, we're going to upload this there, and I've put the link to that. And we'll also link Ms. Holmes's last 2 talks. And you can also sign up to be on our mailing list. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It was an honor to be with you this morning.
And our speaker next week will be Dr. Farzam Kamalabadi. And these are every Saturday at noon Eastern time. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.